you've done all these things and you've got all of these influences, and here you are, a young mother, and you decide that you're going to take your shot. So I just know that that very first novel was just a mega hit, right? You just right out of the chute achieved ultimate success, right? Like
So
all of us.
the first book I wrote, it was about 50 or 60,000 words, and I loved Signet Regencies. I discovered them in college with my sisters, and we passed them back and forth. So I thought, I'm going to write a Signet Regency. I'm going to send it to Hillary Ross, the big editor there. And I knew she was the editor because I opened the book and saw that someone thanked her. I didn't know what RWA was. I had no concept that it even existed. So I wrote this book, and it's called Madeira, my dear, like Madeira, the city in Portugal. But her name was Madeira, and it was a short regency, and I think back on it, and my plot structure was pretty good. My characters were not bad either. But I did have a talking dog, and I didn't know anything about point of view. And so I got a form rejection back from Hillary Ross at Signet Regency. So I thought, oh gosh, I tried. I guess I'm not a writer because Hillary Ross didn't want me. So I didn't know there were other options. I didn't. It didn't even occur to me to explore them.
So
And
this comes into what advice would you give an aspiring writer? Because I know at that point it had to have been devastating.
yeah, it was real disappointing. Um, Well, what I would say to a writer who gets her first rejection after sending out a story, and I did finish the whole story before I sent it out. I didn't know you could send out only partials and stuff like that. I just thought you had to have the book and send them the book. I would say definitely keep going. And this is something I didn't understand. But what I realize now is when somebody rejects your writing, it doesn't mean you're a bad writer most of the time. Most of the time, unless they write back and say, you are the crappiest writer. You don't even know how to put two sentences together. And anybody who says that, you don't want to listen to them anyway. But most people, it's not that you're a really bad writer. It's that your writing doesn't fit what they're looking for at the time. And I didn't realize that at Signet Regency, they didn't have talking dogs and things like that. And I just should have kept going at that point, but I wasn't educated enough to know that there was a support network, and that was RWA. And for me, RWA changed everything. It really is the reason I got published. For many years, I was a member, and I would get the magazine and I would just read it. That's all I knew. I didn't live by a chapter. But then we moved someplace where I was by a chapter, and that was a big eye opener for me. But I still had never gone to a conference, so I went to a regional conference, and that was interesting. I learned a lot. And then I went to the national one, but it took me years to get to the national conference. And I really think if I had gone to the national conference at the very beginning of my career, I would have maybe shaved 8 years off my waiting time because I didn't know any of this was happened. And there are plenty of published writers who get by without that kind of structure and educational support. But in my case, I really needed it. So if I had known about RWA a lot sooner, I think it would have helped. It would have helped me understand that I wasn't the only person out there wanting to get published. I think that's another reason I stopped because I thought, this is so unusual. Everybody around me thinks I'm kind of strange for wanting to do this, and I feel so alone, and I'm just going to quit because it doesn't fit the norm. But when you go to those conventions, you realize there are plenty of people out there. Sure, when you look at the ratio of them to the rest of the population, it's still 0.001%. You get to see, faces, and you realize other people share that dream. So it's important to educate yourself in the process. It's important not to give up. And I think you need to realize that agents and editors have a creative side too. And this is how they show their creativity. They do it by selecting writers that reflect their, maybe not their worldview, or the writers reflect their style or how they want to position themselves as editors or agents. The same way there are 40 coats on the rack every winter that you can choose from for winter coat, and you only like two or three. That's how it is with agents and editors. even though all those coats will suffice, that they're hot by 2 or 3. And it doesn't mean the other coats are not worthwhile. It just means they don't want to wear the red coat with the big shiny gold buttons. But I promise you, if you stick around long enough, you'll find the agent or editor who wants that, metaphorical red coat with the big shiny buttons. That's you. So you need to hang in there. And
That
believe
is so important.
as I'm not a good writer. It doesn't mean that at all.